bodhicitta is the aspiration to become a fully awakened Buddha in order to be of the greatest and most effective benefit to all other sentient beings. So that's what it is. Now, generating it, there's a whole description and a whole series of teachings about how to generate that. There's two different methods too. One is called the 7-point cause and effect tradition. The other one is called equalizing and exchanging self with others. And they're probably in one of the Dharma books that you have access to. Yeah, I would assume. I think some of my books are in Spanish. I don't know if they were published in Spain or maybe in Mexico, but I know if you have Open Heart, Clear Mind or Taming the Monkey Mind, yeah, okay, I see nodding heads, then the method to generate bodhicitta is described in there. Basically, what it involves is developing first an equal attitude towards all other living beings. Because right now we tend to categorize people into friends, enemies, and strangers. And we have attachment for our friends. We have anger, aversion towards our enemies. And we have we don't care about strangers. So when I say attachment, I mean this kind of clinging mind that favors people, that is partial to the people we like, who are kind to us, and so on. When I say enemy, I don't mean, somebody necessarily with a gun pointed at you, but somebody that you don't get along with very well, that you see as disturbing your happiness, and you have some antipathy towards them. And then apathy is just, I don't care. So if we're going to generate the aspiration to become a Buddha, we have to do something about these disturbing emotions like clinging attachment, antipathy, and indifference. Yeah. So to make it equal so that we can care about others equally. Okay. Because a Buddha doesn't play favorites. Yeah. A Buddha doesn't say, oh, my friends, you're nice to me. You give me more apples and oranges on the altar every morning. So I'm going to teach you, but I'm not going to teach anybody else. Okay. So a Buddha doesn't have that problem like we do. Okay. So there's a whole meditation there on how to develop equanimity. Then based on that, there's different meditations to help us see others as kind and to understand how dependent we are on them for everything in our lives. Because we feel like we're independent people, we can manage everything. But actually, everything we have, every talent we have, every possession we have, every skill we have, all we have because of other sentient beings who gave us those things, who taught us, who encouraged us. And so we learn how to see sentient beings as kind and as valuable. Then we also learn how to be sensitive to their suffering within samsara, yeah, and how to diminish our own selfish mind, our own mind of self-concern that thinks my happiness and suffering are more important than anybody else's. Okay, because again, you there's no such thing as a selfish Buddha. So we got to do something with our self-centered mind. So there's a whole set of teachings about how to do that. Okay. And then based on that, then we can generate actual love that wants others to have happiness in its causes, and actual compassion, wanting them to be free of suffering in its causes. And then based on that, we can make the determination to get involved. And then we generate the bodhichitta, saying, I'm aspiring for full awakening. Yeah, not so that I can be a Buddha because I want to be a big shot, but so that I can be of the most effective benefit to all other living beings. Okay, so that's what bodhicitta is. Again, short version, but you can read some more about it. We usually, when we say defend ourselves, we usually think that you have to have anger to defend yourself. Yeah. And that you have to harm somebody else to defend yourself. Yeah. There's ways of resolving conflicts without anger and without harming somebody. Yeah. For example, what about talking with them? Yeah. I know it sounds old-fashioned. People just want to take out a gun or a weapon and kill somebody. But actually, we defend ourselves much better if we can slow down and become interested in what is happening for the other person. Because sometimes what we think the conflict is about is not what the other people think the conflict is about. Okay. A good example is with a teenage child. A teenage child may not want to follow the rules and be independent. And the parent is saying, no, you can't do this and you can't do that. So the child thinks that the conflict is about their autonomy, but the parent thinks the conflict is about the child's safety. If they were able to sit down and talk about it, they would see that they were actually fighting over two different things. And then perhaps they could reach an agreement whereby the child felt they had some autonomy, but also the child could let the parent, was open to receiving some advice from the parent on how to keep safe. Okay, so often these kind of conflicts, to defend ourselves, we don't have to harm somebody else. Yeah. And even verbally, we don't have to go on a big tirade about I'm right and you're wrong and you can't say that to me and you can't do that to me. Because when we respond aggressively like that, how does the other person usually respond? Yeah, you yell and scream and curse and insult. And does the other person go, oh, yes, you're right, I'll do whatever you say? Do they do that? No, they fight and argue back. And then you have a really big blow up and nobody gets anything out of it. Okay. Whereby, if we're able to slow it down and really ask somebody, what are you feeling now? What are you needing right now? Okay. And here I highly recommend a program called Nonviolent Communication. It's by Marshall Rosenberg. And I'm sure they have, he did the program in English, but I'm sure there's got to be a Spanish translation to it. Nonviolent communication. And I highly recommend that because that really teaches us how to tune in to what is going on with the other person. Because so often we're quarreling, but we're missing the point. Yeah. And that just makes the quarrel more vicious. Yeah. Whereas when we're able to express what we're feeling without blaming others for what we're feeling, and when we're able to express what we need without making the other person responsible for giving it to us, then it makes it easier for the other person to hear what's really going on with us. And similarly, when we learn how to talk to somebody to bring out what they're feeling and what they're needing without their demanding things of us, and when we learn how to be more patient in helping to bring other people figure out their feelings and needs, then we become better able to listen and to problem solve. Okay, so yeah, defending ourselves doesn't mean we have to come out with our fists and go boom, 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 or yell and scream or something like that. Yeah, we have to try communication. And also, sometimes we feel defensive, but actually the other person is not intentionally harming us. It's just that we have buttons about certain things. And if somebody says something that has to do with our buttons, we explode and then start wanting to defend ourselves. But the other person from their side didn't mean any harm. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay. So I have a friend, many years ago, who got pregnant. Now, when you're pregnant, you put on weight, right? Yeah, I'm sure many of the women in the audience, you've been pregnant. You know that you have to put on weight. Otherwise, you're not going to have a healthy child. Okay. So my friend was putting on weight as she was pregnant, and she was going to go visit her sister. And she said to me, this is before she even got on the airplane to go see her sister. She wasn't even there. She said to me, I know that when I get off the plane, the first thing my sister is going to say is, oh, you've put on weight, haven't you? And as my friend was telling me this, I could see her getting angry. Yeah, because for her weight was a button, and it was something she was sensitive about. And her sister commenting on it, even though her putting on weight was something natural and necessary to have a healthy baby, already she was getting mad at her sister because she knew her sister would ask that question. Okay, so if you look at this situation, first of all, my friend hadn't even talked to her sister. The situation had not happened. So the whole thing she's getting mad at is a story that her own mind is making up. It didn't even happen. Yeah, she was making up a story. She was sure how her sister was going to insult her, and she was already angry. This is all coming from her mind. Second of all, she's assuming that because her sister says you've put on weight, she's assuming that is a criticism and an insult. Again, from my friend's side, this is completely a wrong way of thinking. Why is it a criticism or an insult when you're pregnant? It's like, what's she getting mad at? Yeah. So here we see a very good example of, she's all prepared to get mad at her sister at a situation that hasn't happened. And even if she gets off the plane and her sister says, you've put on weight, haven't you? Why is there a reason for her to get mad and defensive? There's no reason. Yeah. And even if her sister wanted to deliberately hurt her feelings by saying you've put on weight, so what? Why do you need to get mad about that? Yeah. When you look at some of the things we get mad about, they're so stupid. And we want to retaliate. You can't say that to me. You can't do that to me. But if we really look, it's because we're being super sensitive. Another example to show our super sensitivity. Okay. You're at work. The boss comes in. The boss looks at your colleague who's sitting over there. And your boss looks at the colleague. And let's say your colleague's name is Federico. And he said, Federico, you're such a jerk. You completely messed up this project. I was trusting you to do something. You didn't do it on time. You totally messed it up. And I'm so disappointed in you. And you better get your act together and improve your behavior and your performance at this company. Okay? So somebody says that to Federico, who's our friend. Do we get mad? No. Federico's getting mad. What do we say to Federico? We say, calm down. The boss, he's just in a bad mood today. He's venting. It really doesn't have anything to do with you. You did the best you could. If you explain that to him, the boss will be okay with it. So we're telling our friend, relax. It's not such a big deal that the boss said this. He's just in a bad mood, have some sympathy for the guy. Right? But if the boss walks in and looks at me and says, children, I gave you this responsibility and you completely let me down, and says the exact same words that he said to Federico, except he says those words to me, then what? Do I say to myself, oh, the boss is just in a bad mood, he's venting? I say, no, he doesn't appreciate me. He's blaming me for things I didn't do. Even I made a mistake. It wasn't a bad mistake. Why is he picking on me? I've got to stick up for myself. And we get mad, and then we, lay it out all for the boss. You told me to do this, but you didn't give me the proper instructions. And why are you being so picky? And you don't talk to anybody else like that. What do you want me to do? If I didn't do a good job, it's your fault because you didn't give me the proper instructions. Okay, now, question is, why, when the boss says those words to Federico, why don't I get angry? And why do I just tell Federico, look, chill out, it's not a big thing? And why do I get so upset when he says the same words to me? What's the difference? The difference is who he said the words to, isn't it? And he doesn't know that in my world, nobody tells me I made a mistake. No one is allowed to blame me. I have rules of the universe. Yeah. I have rules for the universe. Yeah. One important rule is nobody blames me for my mistakes. Anyway, I don't make mistakes. So they can't blame me because I don't make mistakes. But even if I make a mistake, they're not supposed to notice it. And even if they notice it, they're not supposed to point it out. And even if they point it out, they're not supposed to belittle me. I've got to defend myself. But you see, it's all ego, isn't it? It's all just my self-centered mind saying, I am the most important one in the universe. Yeah, he can talk to Federico like that, and it's no big deal. But you say that to me, and this has now become a national disaster. Yeah. And if I don't stick up for myself, everybody's going to walk all over me. Is that true? Of course not. I've made it up. I've projected it. But I make up these projections that are false, and I then believe them. So who is it that has to change? You know, do I have to defend myself to the boss, or do I have to calm down and become, more receptive when people give me feedback about my performance, and just say, if I made that mistake and I let the boss down, then I need to say, you're right. I'm very sorry. If we didn't make that mistake, then we just need to explain to the boss give him the actual information, and it'll be okay. But do you see how much we project on people and situations that isn't there? And then we get ourselves all riled up. Okay. So very often when we talk about defending ourselves, there's many other ways to deal with situations than coming out with a frontal assault. Okay. I'll give you another example. I do work with prison inmates. Okay. When you're incarcerated, yeah, you already feel oppressed. So you don't want anybody else to pull something on you. So when they line up for the lunch line, if somebody comes in and tries to cut in front of them, it becomes a big deal. Go back at the end of the line. This is my place. And they get so afraid, the inmates do, that if I don't stand up and tell this guy to get out of here and go to the end of the line, then everybody else in the prison is going to know that I am weak. And then they're all going to pick on me. So I've got to stand up, make a big deal about it, and be prepared to fight with this guy if it's necessary. Okay, that's what they tell me. Yeah. And when I start to say, let's try and find another solution, they say, no, this is exactly the way it is. This is exactly what you have to do. But what I've noticed is when people do things like that, cut in front of you or whatever, or even speak harshly, there's different ways we can respond just with our body language. We can look angry back at them and feel offended and feel put down. Or we can just look at them and say, maintain our own dignity, not be intimidated by what they say, and just say, And I tell the guys in prison, I say, if you maintain your own dignity, that when somebody does that, you're conveying to them that you're not hostile, but there are ways that people need to can behave with you. And there are other ways that are just not acceptable. And you don't need to look angry to do that. Okay. And I said, if you really maintain your dignity and show that, then you look at the guy who is cutting in front of you in the lunch line and you say, please come in front. And if you say it like that, you've shown something to the other guy, that you're not to be intimidated and you're even willing, please come in front. And the other guy loses their power over you because you're not feeling intimidated and you're not getting upset. Okay, so there's different ways to handle situations. I heard of another story of Central Park in New York. Is during the day, it's a park, people go there, it's safe. In the evening at night, sometimes it's not so safe. So I heard a story about a woman who had gone shopping and she needed to cut across the park in New York City to get to where she was going. And she was carrying packages. And as she was walking across the park, she heard footsteps behind her. And there was some guy who was following her, stalking her. Okay, so not a good sign. So what did she do? She's carrying all these packages. She turns around and looks at the guy and says, here, carry these for me, follow me. And she kept walking. And the guy was so shocked because he thought he was going to intimidate her. He was so shocked that he just followed her carrying the packages. When they got to the other side of the park, she said, thank you very much, and took the packages back and went on her way. Yeah, very clever, isn't it? Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, if we think creatively, and we don't let our self-centered mind run the show, then we can figure out ways to deal with these situations whereby we don't need to defend ourselves. We can diffuse them. And this teaching that I'm talking about, how to blend the practice of one life with the 5 forces, is telling us how to do it. So we just did the first of the 5 forces, your motivation in the morning. And that, if you set that, that's a very good way to start your day practicing bodhichitta. Yeah. And when you go to work, you generate a good motivation. Instead of, I got to get up and go to work and I hate my job and, I want to go back to bed or I want to do something fun. Change your motivation, and because usually, so often if you don't like your job, I'm just doing it for the money. Yeah. change your motivation and say, if you work in a place where you're producing goods that other people use, then say, I'm helping to make goods that other people need for their lives, that other people will use and will make them happy. And then you rejoice that your work is producing some kind of goods or machinery or service or something that will really help the customers. Yeah. If you work in a service job, where you're actively helping people, then think, okay, by the service I offer, whether, I'm serving people food, or I'm a therapist, or a teacher, or a lawyer, or whatever it is, I'm offering service, and this is going to benefit my clients. And so I'm happy to be able to do something beneficial. When people come, I can smile at them. And that makes a whole big difference to the customers, to the clients, and then you really try as you go through the day to be kind and make a connection with people and say things encouraging to other people. Yeah. And then, then going to work becomes something where you feel that you have a positive effect on customers, on clients, also on your colleagues. Go into the office and say hi to everybody. Once in a while, bring some treats for everybody. Make the office a pleasant place to be. Okay, so these are all ways of cultivating a kind attitude and doing something for the benefit of others. And then, all the other Dharma teachings you can also practice during the day. You can remember different Dharma teachings of precious human life. You can remember that and rejoice that you have all the conditions necessary to practice the Buddha's teachings. You can remember impermanence, and then that helps you not to get attached to stuff. You can think about karma, our actions, and that they have an ethical dimension. So there's many, many ways throughout the day where you can integrate the Dharma viewpoint in your ordinary life with your work and with your family. So yes, there is a way to practice bodhicitta and live in the world. And one tip, one thing that is very good is make sure you have time every day to do some meditation and to read a Dharma book. It doesn't need to be a long time, but doing this every day, even if you just 10, 15 minutes, it plants the seeds of bodhicitta, it plants the seeds of the Dharma perspective in your mind. Yeah. And then if you say, oh, but I don't have time, then I'm going to ask you to take out a tablet and write down what you do with your time, even 5 and 10 minute segments. How much time do you spend texting back and forth with somebody over something that is really inconsequential, where one text message is fine? How much time do you spend watching television? How much time do you spend going to the bar and drinking? Yeah. If you start writing down how much time you spend doing things, you'll realize that there's some things you can cut out to make time for the Dharma. It's not difficult. Yeah. You just spend a little bit less time watching TV. Actually, that will be good for you. The more you strengthen your aspiration, the easier it is to have the energy to fulfill it. Yeah. So to strengthen your aspiration to benefit others, one, focus on the meditations, seeing the kindness of others, seeing how you depend on them, and focus on the meditation that sees the disadvantages of cyclic existence and how unhappy people are. And then that will make you more sensitive and more willing, to want to create good in the world. Yeah. So that's one tip. Another tip is don't expect too much from you. Remember, you don't have to save the whole world and nobody else can. Yeah. So don't expect yourself to, be bodhisattva, Chenrezig, manifesting in front of everybody and solving everybody's problems. No, just have some kind of realistic expectation, something that you can reasonably do. And as you're reasonably doing that, encourage yourself from time to time, nudge yourself. I'll try and do a little bit more. Okay. So if you nudge yourself to do a little bit more, it's much easier than if you say, oh, I aspire to become a Buddha for the benefit of sentient beings. And look at me. I sleep too late in the morning and I eat too much and I talk to others and I'm such a lousy practitioner. I'm never going to get anywhere. Oh, what's wrong with me? If you talk to yourself like that, that's not helpful at all. Okay? That's not at all helpful. And also, it's not true. You're not the worst practitioner in the world. You're not the laziest person in the world. So you just, do what you can do and nudge yourself a little bit more. And then at the end of the day, when you look at what you did do, have some satisfaction. Pat yourself on the back. Oh, today I cleaned up the coffee counter at work. Now, I'm not going to be arrogant about that. I'm not going to point it out to everybody in the office, but I'm happy because I stretched myself and I did something that just made the office a more pleasant place. Yeah, I'm happy I did that. And feel good about it. Let yourself feel good about the good things that you do. Yeah, maybe you have to drive somebody home because their car broke down. That's okay. Instead of seeing it as, oh God, I have to go out of my way and drive somebody someplace, think, oh, here's an opportunity to help somebody. And I didn't even have to go looking for it. And, I'm going to do this because I care about other living beings. Okay. But really, I find the thing of making sure I have some quiet time every day really important. Quiet time where I can do some meditation practice, where I can read a little bit, where I can think instead of keeping myself the busiest of the busy, where I'm zoom, 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 So learn how to keep yourself balanced. And then that you'll be able to really act more on your virtuous aspiration if you do that. Keep yourself balanced. Okay. And clearly, things that you cannot physically do, don't do them. And don't blame yourself. If you can't physically do it, you can't do it. Okay. If you're lying and making up excuses, that's a whole nother ballgame. Okay. Yeah, those are the kind of things where we want to think about the benefits of cherishing others. And if we think about the benefits of cherishing them, it becomes easier to work for their benefit. So we're all familiar with that situation that the question is about, isn't it? You voice our opinion and somebody ignores it, or they criticize it and pick out the faults, or they start a debate. And don't those people know that this is my opinion and that everything I think is right? I would never have a wrong opinion. Yeah? Why would I ever hold a wrong opinion? I would never do that. Everything I think is right. People should cherish my opinions because I am so smart and I know more than they do and have more information. And these ridiculous, stupid people they don't respect my intelligence and my benevolence to share my wisdom and my wonderful opinions with them. They don't respect that at all. Okay, why do we think like this? This is the disappointment, the discouragement that the person was talking about in the question. Do you think maybe we have this kind of irritation? Maybe because there's a little bit, just a little bit of arrogance on our part. Do you think maybe, yeah, we're too full of ourselves? We exaggerate how wonderful we are. Maybe just consider it. I know it's difficult, but sometimes we have to consider the unthinkable idea that our opinions may not be the best ones. Or even if they are very good, that other people are not yet ready to hear that and that they think otherwise. Okay, so I know changing our mind like that and humbling ourselves is unthinkable, but try it. Okay, try it. Also, it's very helpful to think, I voice my opinion. They don't agree. Well, it's a free world. Aren't they entitled to their own opinions? Aren't they entitled to their own ideas? I don't know any law that says everybody has to accept my ideas. It's a free world. People can think what they want. Anyway, it's only a thought. Why am I so upset about a thought that they're having? Okay. So it's interesting, I try this because this happens to me many times. And I also try and remember that when I say something and somebody else comes back with a retort, which is not what I want to hear, I'd much rather they say, oh, your idea is wonderful. It's the most perfect idea I ever heard. You're the most brilliant person. Thank you for sharing your opinion with me. I would love if they respond that way. And then they do 3 prostrations and make me an offering. But you know what? They don't do that. Yeah. So when somebody comes back with a retort, then I just say, okay, it's my time to find out what they're thinking and what the reasons are for their idea. I don't have to be offended. I don't have to tell myself I'm stupid. This is just what happens with sentient beings. And I'll ask them a question and try and, see what they're thinking. And then just try and discuss the situation. Okay. That's if I remember it on time. If I don't, then I push my idea. Push, push, push. And I can see conflict brewing. And then I go, ugh, I blew it again. And then I try and learn from the situation. And remember, keep your mouth closed, children. Use your mind. Think about it first. Okay. So this is part of our practice too. Okay, so we'll go on to the second point of the five forces. Okay. Oh, there's a little bit more that the text is saying about the first one. So making an intention to utilize our body, speech, and mind to cultivate bodhichitta, and be aware that we want to realign our life so that our life is focused on the Dharma. Not realign our life so that I can get everything I want, so that I can be important, so that I can be famous. No, I'm going to try and realign my way of thinking to be of benefit to others. Okay, then, so you wake up in the morning, you generate this motivation. Then in the evening, keep a little bit of quiet time before you go to bed and review the day. And really check how well was I able to live and act and speak and think today. That corresponds with the motivation I set in the morning. And when you see you did well, again, pat yourself on the back and say, that's good. I will make more effort in that direction in the future. This is good. I'm glad I was able to do that. When you realize that maybe you didn't do as well as you wanted, and that your self-centered mind took over and you pushed to get your way, or that your self-centered mind took over and you felt guilty and you were sitting there telling yourself what a horrible person you were, both of these things it's just self-centered mind. So notice that, and then do some purification practice. And the purification practice is very good to do, because then if we spoke poorly to somebody or we carried a negative intention, we have a feeling of remorse or regret for it, but we don't sit there and hang on to feeling guilty. Guilt is absolutely no use. Okay, we have to be very clear about this, because many of us were taught that if we felt guilty, we were somehow absolving ourselves of that negativity. No. Guilt is just more self-centeredness. When we feel guilty, we're the star of the show again, except instead of being the best person in the world, we are now the worst person in the world. But somehow we are better than everybody else in either being the best or being the worst. Okay. So, doing some purification practice. If you know the practice of prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, you can do that. You can do the Vajrasattva practice. Yeah. You can do the Chenrezig practice and imagine Chenrezig, or do the Shakyamuni Buddha practice. Imagine the Buddha, and then express your regret. Make a determination not to do it again. Change your attitude towards whoever you harmed, and in that way purify when we weren't able to live up to the aspiration we set in the morning. And then make a determination to learn from the situation. Yeah, because people are so afraid of failing. Yeah, failing is not the problem. We're all going to fail at some time or another. We don't do things perfectly. This is just our human condition. Failing is not the problem. The problem is how we deal with the failure. If we fail and we learn something from the failure, we come out better than we were before that situation. And I know that from experience in my own life, that some of the times that I have grown the most are when I failed. Yeah. And I've learned from the situation. What did I do? What was my wrong way of thinking? How did I ignore the red flags that were there because I was attached to someone or something? And then as I learned from the situations, then I become stronger. I develop more resources in myself, and then I can deal with future situations in a much better way. Another example of this is I once spoke to somebody who had a friend, and his friend's job, they were in the science department at a university, and the friend's job was screening all the applicants for graduate school in that science department. And the friend told him that when he's screening the applicants, what he looks for is how does that person deal with failure? Because when you're a scientist, you're going to devise experiments and you're going to do research, and you have a theory of how things are going to turn out. And many times your theory is going to be wrong. And things don't turn out the way you had thought they would. And you just feel like, oh, what did I do wrong? All my colleagues are going to think that I'm lousy and I can't do good research, And this person who screens these applicants said, I look at what these people do when they fail that way. And if when they fail, they start to change the data so that it looks like the experiment went the way they theorized, that person's I'm not going to accept that person. Yeah. If that person gets discouraged and throws their hands up and says, I just give up, forget it, I won't accept that person. If the person goes back and learns from, their mistakes and looks at the thing from another perspective and tries another way of researching the topic, then, that guy said, then I'll accept him into the program because he'll be creative and he'll learn. And he's not going to be so ego sensitive that he just gives up or that he lies about the data. Yeah. So when my friend told me this, I thought, yes, that is really good. That is good advice. Yeah. So often when people come to the Abbey when I live, and people want to stay long term, then I look at how they deal with conflict, how they deal with failure. I don't look just at the things they do well. So at the end of the day, learn from whatever you did. And you'll find if you do that you will definitely become better at what you're doing. Okay, then the second of the 5 forces. The second of the 5 forces is called the white seed. And this means the seed of merit. So it's the whole practice of creating merit or positive energy, positive potential in our Dharma practice, and the whole practice of purifying whatever negative karma we have created. So to do this, we need to first hear the teachings, and we need to learn what is a virtuous activity, something meritorious, what is a non-virtuous activity, something that is going to hold us back if we get involved in. So we have to study about karma. Karma means our actions, and see that our actions have an ethical dimension to them, and care about the effects of our actions on other people. Yeah. How do my thoughts, my words, my physical actions, how do those affect the people that are in the environment around me? How do they plant karmic seeds on my own mind stream that will influence what I experience in my future lives and what kind of life I will have in the future? Okay. So you start to think about these things, and then you start to really look over your life and kind of do some research on our life and see the habit patterns in our life. What problems in my life have I experienced multiple times? And is there some way in which I contribute to those problems? And if so, how do I need to think and behave and speak so as not to create those kind of problems for myself? One good example in which this happens is we may see people who get in bad romantic relationships frequently. Yeah. Maybe it happens to you. Maybe you know somebody who seems to, they're in a relationship and then it just doesn't work out. So to look, if we get in relationships that don't work out, or if we're in a steady relationship, but we constantly fight about the same thing, because you know how it can be sometimes when you're together with somebody for a long time, you just like rehash the same old quarrel again and again. Yeah. So if that kind of thing is going on, then stop and look at it and say, is there some way that I'm thinking or acting that is contributing to this? Or is there some kind of red flag in the other person's behavior that I'm ignoring and making excuses for them because I'm attached to them instead of being clear about what behavior is acceptable and what isn't? Okay. And so here, we may find things that we've done before that we regret or that have been mistaken. Or we've exaggerated something, we've projected something, we've said or done or thought something that we realize now is not conducive for our own happiness or for the other person's happiness. Okay, so then we do some purification. Yeah, so the purification process, it has 4 powers. I just went briefly through them. I'll do it again. The first one is regret that we did the action, not guilt, regret. Second one is changing our attitude towards whoever it was that we harmed. So if we were angry at somebody, apply one of the techniques the Buddha taught to overcome our anger. So we might have been angry and said or done something that we now regret. Yeah. So look, and how there's many books out. I think I know my book. I wrote a book called Working with Anger. I know that one's in Spanish. And, there's a lot of techniques in there about how to handle anger. They're all from Shantideva, an 8th century Buddhist sage. Okay. So I plagiarized all of Shantideva's ideas, but they come from a reliable source. They don't come from me. So, change your attitude towards whoever it was you harmed. Yeah. Then do something to remedy the situation. Yeah. So you may go to the other person and apologize. Or if it's a situation where there's no one specific to apologize to, or that other person, you're not in touch with them anymore, then do some other kind of practice. Yeah. Recite Vajrasattva mantra, do prostrations to the Buddha, make offerings to the Buddha, study the Dharma. All of these are activities that are virtuous. So put your energy in them and do that. And then finally, the 4th power is making a determination not to do that action again. Okay. So you may not be able to say, I will never, ever, ever do it, but do it, make a determination for 1 day or 2 days, and then keep that. Okay, so that's purify, at the end of the day. And some people do whole retreats where you spend your whole retreat just doing purification. And then also do things that create merit. So again, this can be things like making offerings to the 3 jewels, reciting the names of the Buddhas, reciting mantra, bowing to the Buddhas and thinking of their virtuous qualities, studying the Dharma. Yeah, it could involve volunteering, volunteering at a hospital or an orphanage or a home for abused women or who knows what. We really need volunteers. Tutor some children who need tutoring to, just do something that is directly benefiting somebody. And that's a really virtuous action. And in that way, you accumulate merit. Okay. So people often wonder what merit is. It's basically just positive energy. It's the positive potential. We do something with a good motivation, yeah, and we carry it out with kindness and in an appropriate way. And we've created this positive potential. Even us sharing the day together, talking and thinking about the Dharma, we're creating so much merit. And then we rejoice at that merit because we've created the positive potential that will bring good results in terms of having a good rebirth, experiencing good things happening to us, establishing very positive and virtuous habits and ways of thinking and acting and thinking. Yeah. So we create a lot of merit through these activities. Yeah. Some other people do Buddhist practices. They make satsa, they publish books. Yeah, I know Ediciones Dharma. I'm in touch with Isidro, who's in charge there. Yeah, so he publishes all these Dharma books. I mean, how beneficial is that to be able to share the Dharma with other people? Yeah, you volunteer at the Dharma Center. You know, even if you have pets, I see some of you have pets. You haven't met my cat yet. I'm sure she'll come and introduce herself. But you have pets and there's bugs around, you know, do some of your mantras out loud so that your pets hear the mantra. It plants good seeds in their mind. Yeah. When you see bugs that are injured, yeah, say Om Mani Padme Hum many times and blow on them. It's incredible. The bug sometimes revives. You thought it for sure was going to die, and you know it revives. So these are ways of sharing the Dharma, putting virtue, you know, helping to plant in other people's minds the seeds of virtue. You know, give your friends Dharma books, invite them to come to teachings with you. Don't push, just invite. Yeah, leave a Dharma book lying around on the coffee table at home. Yeah, somebody might pick it up. You don't know. Yeah, I had a friend who, well, actually a nun, and her sister was what was she? I think she was a Jehovah's Witness, one Christian sect. And, you know, so it was difficult a little bit to talk about their religious differences with her sister. But what she did is she just left one of Lama Yeshe's thin books, one of the very thin books, just left it lying around the house on the coffee table. And her sister picked it up and started reading part of it, and then came to her later and said, you know, what we think about, you know, in our two religions, there's some similarities in what we think about. And all of a sudden, she could have a dialogue with her sister about kindness, about forgiveness, because all religions talk about this in one way or another. Okay. So that you're helping your friends and relatives create merit, and you're creating merit yourself. Okay. So that's the second one. Also, if you purify and you create merit, then when you study the Dharma, the teachings have a stronger effect on you. Yeah. And it becomes easier to remember them too. It's a very interesting way that happens. When I first met the Dharma, I decided to do a purification retreat with another group of people. And I always heard, oh, you're purifying, you're creating merit. And I'm going, how do I know I'm purifying? How do I know I'm creating merit? You know, the texts say, oh, you're purifying if you dream of the Buddha and if you dream of flying in the sky. Well, I don't have those kind of dreams, you know? So how do I know if I'm purifying and creating merit? So after the retreat, I went back, you know, to the monastery Dharma Center, Kopan, where I had been studying. And I listened to my teacher's teachings again. And all of a sudden, I realized, oh my goodness, he's been talking about this and I haven't even understood it. Yeah. And all of a sudden, what he was saying had a totally different effect on my mind. It was like, oh, that's what that means. Yeah. And then I realized that was a sign of having done purification and accumulating merit. Yeah. So when we're stuck in our Dharma practice, it's good to do those purification and accumulating merit practices. And they often clear away obstacles in our minds, in our lives, and then we can really understand the teachings better. And also we begin to change through the force of doing these practices. Okay, so what we're going to do now is dedicate our short dedications. And then do you have the King of Prayers in Spanish? Good. Then we'll recite that because that also is an aspiration prayer. So it's a way for us to cycle around to making strong aspirations, purifying, accumulating merit by thinking about what the King of Prayers is saying.